Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins have stirred the pot in their tight end room once again, and this time it's a name that rings familiar to some die-hard fans. On Monday, the team officially announced the signing of tight end Chris Myarick, a move that not only adds depth but also injects a bit of nostalgia back into the organization. In a corresponding transaction, rookie Jalen Conyers has been placed on injured reserve, opening the door for Myarick's return to the franchise where his NFL journey first began. It's a full circle moment that gives both player and franchise a renewed sense of opportunity. Myarick originally joined the Dolphins as an undrafted free agent in 2019, working his way through training camps and practice squads before finally getting a shot on the field. His first 3 NFL games came wearing aqua and orange, making this reunion more than just a business move. It's a second chance built on old foundations. Myarick's path through the league hasn't been glamorous, but it's been the kind of journey that speaks to perseverance and grit. After parting ways with Miami, he found his next NFL home with the New York Giants, where he began to carve out a reputation as a reliable depth piece. In 24 appearances with the Giants, Myarick hauled in 10 receptions for 82 yards and managed to find the end zone twice. These aren't flashy numbers, but for a player often buried in depth charts or called upon primarily for blocking duties, those stats show he's made the most of his limited chances. More importantly, coaches around the league have praised his work ethic, football IQ, and willingness to do the dirty work. Attributes that don't always show up in a box score, but are critical to building a well-rounded roster. For a Dolphins team looking to tighten up special teams and blocking schemes, Myarick fits the bill. Meanwhile, the unfortunate part of this transaction involves Jalen Conyers, the undrafted rookie tight end out of Texas Tech, who has been placed on injured reserve. It's a tough break for a player who had generated some buzz during the offseason due to his size, athleticism, and upside. Conyers came off a strong final collegiate season with the Red Raiders racking up 30 receptions for 320 yards and finding the end zone 5 times. His combination of soft hands and ability to stretch the field had some in the Dolphins building quietly optimistic about his development. Placing him on IR doesn't necessarily spell the end of his rookie year, but it certainly puts his progress on pause. Now the coaching staff will have to monitor his recovery while also reevaluating their plans at the position, especially as preseason begins to ramp up and roster cuts loom in the near future. This signing says a lot about where the Dolphins are mentally as they prepare for the grueling weeks ahead. Head coach Mike McDaniel and general manager Chris Grier aren't just looking for highlight reel talent. They're focusing on players who understand the nuances of the game and can step in immediately with minimal learning curve. That's where Myarick's previous time in Miami becomes so valuable. He knows the building, the vibe, some of the playbook concepts, and the expectations that come with wearing the Dolphins logo. In a league where chemistry and familiarity often tip the scales in close games, bringing back someone who's already been part of the culture makes a ton of sense. The front office isn't just looking for depth, they're looking for trust. And Myarick has already earned that once in South Florida. Now he'll get the chance to earn it again. One can't ignore the underlying message this move sends to the locker room and the fan base. The Dolphins are in win now mode, and that means every spot on the 90-man roster needs to be competitive and reliable. Chris Myarick may not be a Pro Bowler, but he's dependable and battle-tested, 2 traits that are crucial when the inevitable injuries and mid-season slumps arrive. He's also versatile, capable of lining up as an H-back, contributing on special teams and executing blocking assignments that create running lanes or protect the quarterback. These are the unsexy blue-collar aspects of football that often decide games in December and January. Miami is signaling that it values that level of toughness and preparation. The days of experimenting with raw prospects and waiting on development might be over, at least for the time being, as the franchise eyes a deep playoff run in a loaded AFC. From a strategic perspective, adding Myarick at this point in the offseason also provides much-needed insurance. The Dolphins' tight end room has seen its fair share of shakeups over the past few seasons, with injuries and inconsistencies plaguing the position. With the regular season creeping closer, coaches are narrowing in on personnel groupings, red, zone packages, and pass protection schemes. Having a player like Myarick, who's seen different systems and understands situational football, can be invaluable in helping younger players get up to speed while also stabilizing rotations in both camp and preseason games. His experience can serve as a bridge between the veterans and the rookies, helping reinforce technique and mental sharpness. In a sense, he's not just a roster addition, he's a coach on the field, one who can still line up and get the job done when called upon. Of course, Myarick's second stint in Miami isn't guaranteed to last. The NFL is a business of production, and training camp is a crucible where every snap counts. If he's going to stick on the final 53-man roster, he'll need to showcase not just familiarity, but tangible impact during preseason matchups. That means executing blocks flawlessly, creating separation on routes, and possibly adding a few clutch catches in scrimmages or preseason games. The margin for error is razor thin, especially when competing against younger, more explosive athletes. But Myarick's been in this position before, and he understands the urgency. This isn't just a nostalgic reunion, it's an audition, one that could redefine the next chapter of his career. Every rep, every drill, every meeting is now under the microscope. And Myarick knows that better than anyone. The Dolphins, meanwhile, have to balance the sentimental appeal of bringing back a former player with the cold reality of NFL competition. There's no room for emotional decisions in a league where jobs are won and lost in the blink of an eye. Yet by all accounts, Myarick isn't here because of sentiment. He's here because he earned it. His work with the Giants proved he can perform under pressure, and his prior stint in Miami showed he's a team-first guy who's willing to grind. The front office wouldn't bring him back if they didn't believe he could contribute right away. And while Conyers' injury is unfortunate, it may have opened a door for the Dolphins to reinforce their roster with someone who brings both experience and hunger. It's the kind of low-key transaction that doesn't grab headlines, but could end up paying big dividends down the line. Fans might not flood social media with excitement over the Chris Myarick signing, but these are exactly the types of moves that championship teams make when they're serious about competing. The Dolphins have made splashier acquisitions in recent years, from high-profile trades to first-round picks, but building a title contender takes more than just stars. It takes glue guys, locker room leaders, and reliable veterans who can step in and when the lights are brightest. Myarick fits that mold, and his return could help steady the ship as Miami navigates a difficult schedule and fierce divisional rivals. If he can carve out a niche on this team, whether as a blocking specialist, special teams ace, or emergency target in 2 tight end sets, he'll prove once again that there's always room in this league for guys who do things the right way. And in a game full of egos and hype, that's a storyline worth watching. As training camp continues to unfold, the spotlight will inevitably shift to other position battles and storylines. Quarterback mechanics, wide receiver depth, or defensive scheme adjustments. But don't overlook the subtle importance of moves like this one. Chris Myarick's return to Miami isn't just about filling a roster spot. It's about setting a tone. It shows that the Dolphins are serious about accountability, that they value guys who keep fighting even when the odds are long. It reminds the locker room that no job is safe and no opportunity should be taken for granted. For Myarick, it's a chance to prove he still belongs. For the Dolphins, it's another calculated piece in a much larger puzzle. And for fans, it's a reminder that every name on that depth chart has a story. Some just take a little longer to unfold. Keep an eye on number 85. He might not be flashy, but he's got something to prove. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? In a stunning twist that's rocking the NFL rumor mill, whispers are growing louder about a controversial behind-the-scenes moment involving Miami Dolphins defensive line coach Anthony Weaver. According to reports circulating from insiders close to the Dolphins organization, Weaver allegedly made some less than flattering comments about the Dolphins franchise. And what's more shocking, This wasn't during a heated moment on the sideline or behind closed doors. Sources say Weaver was overheard voicing his frustrations in a semi-public setting, perhaps not expecting the words to travel. And boy, did they travel, for a man so closely tied to the culture-building project that Mike McDaniel and the front office have been championing. Weaver's rumored remarks seem to go completely against the one team, one vision mantra that the Dolphins have been selling to fans and the media since the beginning of last season. Naturally, the football world has been set ablaze with speculation and concern. The exact content of Weaver's alleged critique remains murky, but multiple individuals with knowledge of the situation claim he questioned the team's long-term identity, player development strategy, and even the front office's commitment to a Super Bowl trajectory. This isn't just locker room frustration. It's being described as a complete philosophical clash. Some have gone so far as to suggest that Weaver views the Dolphins' flashy offense first branding as masking a lack of structural depth on defense, something he reportedly finds increasingly difficult to work with. If true, this puts the team in a precarious position, especially considering how instrumental Weaver has been in revitalizing Miami's pass rush. People within the league are starting to ask whether this was a one-off venting moment, or if it signals deeper cracks within the Dolphins' coaching infrastructure. The timing couldn't be worse. With training camp in full swing and expectations for a playoff push higher than ever, fans are understandably stunned. Anthony Weaver has been seen as a rising star in coaching circles, and many believed he was in line for a future defensive coordinator or even head coach opportunity. To hear that he might be souring on the very organization that gave him a platform to shine is jarring. The Dolphins have worked hard to rebuild their reputation in recent years, shedding the dysfunction that plagued them in the past and ushering in a new era of player-first culture, collaborative coaching, and modern football ideology. Weaver seemed like a perfect fit. That's why this rumor, true or not, has created such an uproar. Could Weaver be the first sign that all is not well behind the sunny optics of the Dolphins' 2025 campaign? Or is this a classic case of a coach's words being twisted and blown out of proportion during the most scrutinized part of the offseason? Social media has gone into overdrive since the rumor surfaced. Dolphins Twitter is currently in meltdown mode, with some users defending Weaver's alleged comments as necessary truth-telling, while others are calling for his resignation or immediate dismissal. Reddit threads have exploded with speculation, dissecting every press conference, sideline clip, and facial expression in search of clues. Even former players and analysts have begun to weigh in, with a few unnamed sources hinting that this isn't the first time Weaver has clashed with Dolphins leadership behind closed doors. But so far, no official statements have been made by the Dolphins front office, which is only fueling the fire further. The silence has been interpreted by many as a confirmation that there's at least some truth to the rumor. After all, if it were completely false, why wouldn't the team shut it down right away with a quick public denial? Behind the scenes, there's growing talk that tensions between Weaver and some of the offensive staff have been simmering for months. Some insiders allege that Weaver has repeatedly voiced his dissatisfaction with how practice reps are allocated, feeling that the defense is often shortchanged in team installs. This reportedly came to a head earlier in the offseason when Weaver confronted members of the offensive coaching team in what's been described as a tense but professional disagreement. Still, those tensions may have carried over, bubbling beneath the surface as frustrations mounted. According to one source, Weaver feels that despite putting together one of the league's most improved defensive lines, he's been underappreciated both internally and externally. Combine that with an ambitious personality and aspirations for a larger role, and it becomes easier to understand why such frustrations, if real, might eventually leak out in ways that surprise even those closest to the situation. Adding fuel to the fire are rumors that several players on the defensive unit may have sided with Weaver privately. Some players are said to echo his concerns about the team's long-term direction, particularly regarding how defensive talent is utilized. There's word that certain veterans feel marginalized by what they perceive as an offense-dominated coaching strategy, especially given the heavy media focus on Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. While no player has gone on record, several beat writers have hinted that locker room dynamics might be more complicated than the public has been led to believe. If true, this shifts the narrative away from just one disgruntled coach to something more systemic, a philosophical rift between offense and defense that could destabilize the Dolphins' tight-knit image. And if key defensive players are indeed aligning with Weaver, the stakes for resolving this situation quickly and quietly rise tenfold. Meanwhile, league executives and rival teams are reportedly watching the situation very closely. Multiple sources say other teams have already begun quietly preparing fillers just in case Weaver becomes available. His defensive mind is highly respected around the league, and if things truly sour in Miami, he would be snapped up in a heartbeat. Some are even suggesting that this leak might have been strategic, an intentional move to shake loose a better opportunity, either within the Dolphins system or elsewhere. Weaver is ambitious, no doubt about it, and if he's feeling boxed in or misaligned with the team's direction, planting a few well-placed doubts in the media could be a calculated way to open doors. Whether that's true or just speculative noise remains unclear, but what is certain is that his name is now at the center of the league's biggest off-season buzz. For the Dolphins, the challenge now is damage control, both internally and externally. They need to assess how much truth there is to these allegations, what steps need to be taken to calm the waters, and how to prevent this from becoming a distraction as the regular season approaches. Already, several media members are calling for a press conference or at least a statement from McDaniel addressing the situation. Dolphins fans are demanding transparency, and if the team chooses to remain silent, it could be interpreted as weakness or disorganization. Miami has invested too much in reshaping its brand and trajectory to let something like this spiral out of control. Yet handling it delicately is key. If Weaver is innocent or misquoted, throwing him under the bus would send the wrong message. But if there's fire behind the smoke, inaction could do even more harm in the long run. So where do things go from here? Much depends on how Anthony Weaver responds. So far, he has not publicly commented on the rumor, nor have any of the Dolphins' major figures, including Mike McDaniel, general manager Chris Greer, or team owner Stephen Ross. This silence, though possibly strategic, is only adding to the intrigue. Rumors like this don't just disappear. They either explode or force people into action. If Weaver does speak, the tone and content of his words could determine his future in Miami. A firm denial and reaffirmation of commitment might be enough to quiet things down, especially if supported by player testimonies and a unified front from the coaching staff. But any hint of ambiguity or dissatisfaction could reignite the firestorm. Fans, analysts, and insiders are all watching closely. Everyone wants to know, is this just a moment of smoke or the beginning of something far more combustible? In the end, this situation is a fascinating case study in how quickly perception can shift in the NFL. Just weeks ago, Anthony Weaver was being hailed as a foundational piece in Miami's defense-first resurgence. Now, he's at the center of a swirling storm of speculation that could reshape his future and maybe even the Dolphins season. Regardless of the truth behind the alleged comments, this moment reminds us of how fragile unity can be in a high-pressure league like the NFL. Coaching staffs are made up of strong personalities, clashing philosophies, and ambitious dreams. And sometimes those fault lines stay hidden until they don't. Whether Weaver stays and thrives in Miami or becomes the latest high-profile departure, one thing is clear. The Dolphins and their fans are now living in a new reality. One shaped not just by talent or tactics, but by whispers, rumors, and the power of one man's words. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up!